The way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. This is a message I believe every parent needs to hear. Not just once, but many, many times. A quote so powerful that it can change the way you speak to your child forever. Pause for a moment. Really think about that, because if that's true, then the next question is painfully important. What exactly have we been planting into that inner voice? And here's the heartbreaking part. Many of the phrases we consider normal, common, or harmless are actually quietly destroying our child's confidence without us even realizing it. In today's video, I'm going to share 10 everyday phrases that seem innocent, but can have far deeper emotional impact than we think. And more importantly, I'll give you simple, powerful alternatives, so by the time you finish this video, you can begin rebuilding a stronger, kinder inner voice for your child. And please stay until the end, because the final phrase is the one responsible for many children growing up never daring to dream big again. Before we dive in, welcome to Mindful Parenting, where we help parents raise emotionally wise, confident, and well-behaved kids through mindful, science-based parenting. If you want your child to grow up confident, resilient, and courageous enough to take on challenges, then changing the way we speak to them must begin today. Let's begin. And I want you to listen, not to feel like you've done something wrong, but to understand that we can always do better. Let's start with the first phrase, one that many parents say automatically, especially when we're tired or overwhelmed. Stop crying. Emotional invalidation. The phrase that quiets a child on the outside, but creates storms on the inside. When a child cries, their brain isn't trying to overreact. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. Release emotional tension so the nervous system can return to balance. But when we say, stop crying, we interrupt that natural regulation process. We silence the behavior, yes, but we silence the child's inner world too. On the outside, the crying stops. But inside, the child is learning something dangerous. My feelings are not acceptable. I shouldn't show them. I should hide them. And a child who hears, stop crying, too often grows into an adult who struggles to name their emotions. Who apologizes for feeling sad. Who doesn't know how to ask for support. Not because they don't feel, but because they were trained not to. Neuroscience tells us this clearly. Emotions that are suppressed don't disappear. They resurface later as anger, anxiety, shutdowns, or emotional distance. This is why emotional validation is not spoiling a child. It's supporting healthy brain and emotional development. A better way to respond. I can see you're upset. It's okay to cry. I'm right here with you. A sentence as simple as this doesn't make a child cry more. It helps their brain calm down faster. Because they feel safe. And if silencing tears can quietly shape a child's inner world, there's another phrase that's just as damaging. Because instead of silencing emotions, it labels the child's identity. Let's talk about that. You're so lazy. The label effect. When a parent says, you're lazy, the child doesn't hear feedback about their action. They hear a verdict about who they are. And here's what developmental psychology consistently shows. Children become the words they repeatedly hear about themselves. Calling a child lazy doesn't motivate them. It programs their brain with a belief. This is my identity. This is who I am. And once a label becomes an identity, it stops being about a messy room or unfinished chores. It becomes a story the child tells themselves, over and over again, well into adulthood. A child who hears, lazy, too often, may grow into an adult who avoids challenges because, I won't be able to do it anyway. Procrastinates not from lack of ability, but from shame. Feels broken rather than supported. Neuroscientist Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett says something powerful. When the brain receives the same message repeatedly, it builds that message into the child's sense of self. So this isn't about hurting feelings. It's about shaping identity, and identity lasts far longer than any undone chore. A healthier alternative. I noticed you haven't started yet. Let's make a plan. Do you want to begin with the toys or the clothes? This shifts the focus from who the child is to what the child can do next. And that tiny shift builds problem solving, not shame. And if labeling a child can quietly shape who they believe they are, there's another phrase that shapes how they think. A phrase so common that many parents don't even notice they're using it. A phrase that doesn't shut down identity. It shuts down curiosity. Let's look at that one. Because I said so. The phrase that ends the conversation, but also ends curiosity. When a child asks, "Why do I have to eat vegetables? Why can't I stay up a little longer? Why do I need to clean my room now?" They're not trying to challenge your authority. They're doing what a child's brain is wired to do. Make sense of the world through questions. But when we respond with, "Because I said so," we're not just ending the argument. We're ending an opportunity for the child to learn how to reason, how to evaluate, and how to connect cause and effect. Child development research is clear. Children who grow up without explanations often struggle later with independent decision-making, critical thinking, understanding consequences, and advocating for themselves. Why? Because when adults remove the why, children never learn how. Because I said so produces obedience. Yes, but it does not produce understanding. It creates compliance, but blocks connection. Dr. Ross Greene, one of the leading voices in modern parenting science, says it best. Kids do well when they can, not when they're forced. And understanding why is one of the abilities that allows children to do well. When we replace explanation with authority, we miss a powerful moment to teach our children how their bodies work, how relationships work, how responsibility works, and ultimately, how life works. Right finger a healthier alternative. Vegetables give your body the vitamins it needs to grow strong. You don't have to like all of them. Let's find the ones you enjoy. This doesn't make the child push back more. It makes the child understand. And a child who understands cooperates. Not out of fear, but out of clarity. And if shutting down a child's curiosity can limit how their mind grows, the next phrase limits something even deeper. The way they see their own heart. It's a phrase many parents say with a laugh, not realizing it can make a child feel defective for simply feeling. "You're too sensitive." The phrase that teaches a child to be ashamed of their own heart. When a child cries because a cartoon character gets hurt, or feels overwhelmed by a loud noise, or gets teary when someone speaks sharply, they're not being dramatic, they're being emotionally attuned. Sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a biological temperament, one linked with high empathy, creativity, intuition, and deep emotional processing. But when we tell a child, "You're too sensitive," we're not helping them toughen up. We're teaching them that something about their emotional wiring is wrong. And here's what psychologists consistently find. Children who grow up being told they're too sensitive often hide their feelings to avoid judgment, learn to apologize for emotions that are completely normal, struggle with boundaries because they don't trust their own perceptions, or become adults who feel too much for the world. Not because they are, but because someone told them so. Dr. Elaine Aron, the leading researcher on sensitivity, explains, highly sensitive children are not fragile. They simply process the world more deeply. But when we shame that depth, children stop expressing their inner world, and start performing a version of themselves that feels acceptable. And nothing kills self-confidence faster than feeling like your authentic self is too much. A healthier alternative. You feel things deeply. That's a beautiful strength. This doesn't make the child more sensitive. It makes the child more secure. Because when a child learns their heart is not a problem, they stop hiding and start growing. And if shaming a child's sensitivity can make them hide their heart, the next phrase doesn't just make them hide, it makes them question their worth. It's one of the most painful sentences a child can hear, not because of what it says about their behavior, but because of what it suggests about who they are. "You're such a disappointment." Identity wound. When a child makes a mistake, breaks a rule, brings home a bad grade, forgets a responsibility, They expect correction or a conversation. But what they do not expect is a sentence that cuts past the behavior and strikes directly at their identity. "You're such a disappointment." This phrase doesn't say, "You made a poor choice." It says, "You are not enough." And the difference is enormous. Psychologists call this identity-based shaming. And research shows it is one of the strongest predictors of perfectionism rooted in fear, chronic self-criticism, avoidance of challenges, and a lifelong belief that love must be earned, not given. Why? Because when a child hears, "You're a disappointment," the brain records something much deeper than discipline. My worth depends on my performance. If I fail, I am unlovable. This isn't just emotional hurt. It's identity damage. And identity wounds, unlike behavioral mistakes, don't heal quickly. So instead of motivating children to do better, shame convinces them they can't. And a child who believes they are the disappointment rarely grows into an adult who feels safe taking risks, trying again, or pursuing big dreams. A healthier alternative. "I didn't like the choice you made, but I believe you can make a better one next time." This sentence does two powerful things: separates the child from the mistake, and keeps the door open for growth, repair, and connection. Because discipline should guide a child, not define them. And if telling a child they're a disappointment can damage their sense of worth, the next phrase damages something just as important: their belief in what they're capable of becoming. It's a sentence that doesn't correct a moment. It limits a future. "You're not good at that." The phrase that convinces a child to stop before they start. A child misses a goal, plays the wrong note on the piano, draws something that doesn't look right. And instead of hearing guidance, they hear a verdict: "You're not good at that." But here's what child psychology and learning science both agree on. Children are not born good or bad at things. They become good at things through repetition, curiosity, support, and time. When a parent says, "You're not good at that," the child doesn't interpret it as feedback. They interpret it as limitation. They hear, "I shouldn't try. I'm not capable. I'm already behind. Why bother?" Dr. Carol Dweck, the scientist behind growth mindset, found that children who believe abilities are fixed are far more likely to avoid challenges, quit early, fear failure, and underestimate their own potential. Not because they lack talent, but because they lack permission. Permission to try. Permission to fail. Permission to improve. A healthier alternative. That was tough, and everyone starts by missing. Do you want to practice together? Encouragement fuels perseverance. This simple shift does two powerful things: normalizes the struggle, and reinforces the child's belief that they can grow. Because confidence isn't built by being good instantly. It's built by being supported consistently. And if telling a child they're not good at something limits their potential, the next phrase limits something even more fundamental: their right to feel human. It's a sentence passed down through generations, yet it leaves scars that last a lifetime. Let's talk about that one. Big boys, girls don't cry. Gendered harm. Your son scrapes his knee. He starts to cry. You say, "Come on, big boys don't cry." The message: boys must suppress emotions. Girls must stay strong. Both lose. It teaches emotional suppression. It teaches children that pain must be hidden. Vulnerability is weakness. Emotions are embarrassing. And needing comfort is something to be ashamed of. Here's the scientific truth psychologists keep repeating: crying is not a failure of strength. It is the body's built-in system for emotional regulation. When we shut it down, we're shutting down the child's natural ability to process stress. And research shows that children who grow up hearing, "Don't cry," or "Be tough," are far more likely as adults to struggle with anxiety and emotional shutdown. Difficulty forming deep relationships. Explosive anger, because tears had no permission. And a painful belief that emotions are dangerous. Dr. Susan David, Harvard psychologist, says, when we deny a child permission to feel, we teach them that their feelings are untrustworthy and wrong. And here's the saddest part: children who are taught not to cry don't become stronger. They become lonelier inside themselves. A healthier alternative. It's okay to cry when you're hurt. Let's clean this up together. I'm right here with you. This doesn't make the child weaker. It makes them emotionally literate. It teaches them that strength isn't the absence of tears. It's knowing you're safe enough to express them. And if telling a child not to cry suppresses their emotions, the next phrase suppresses something just as fragile: their sense of identity. It's a sentence that sounds harmless, even motivational, but it quietly tells a child that who they are is not enough. Let's look at it. Why can't you be more like your brother, sister? The comparison trap. A child brings home a B while their sibling gets an A. One child is quiet and reflective. The other is social and energetic. One learns quickly. The other learns deeply. And yet the moment we say, "Why can't you be more like your brother, sister?" a dangerous message is delivered. Who you are is not good enough. Be someone else. Comparison doesn't motivate children. Comparison makes them feel unseen. Research on sibling dynamics shows that children who are compared often develop rivalry instead of connection, insecurity instead of confidence, resentment instead of respect, and a fragile sense of identity, because their value is always measured against someone else. Comparison teaches children to look outward for validation, instead of inward for growth. It teaches them that love is conditional, performance-based, and competitive. Dr. Alfie Kohn, a leading voice in child development, explains, when children are compared, they don't learn to do better. They learn to feel worse. Sibling comparison doesn't push one child forward. It pulls both children down. A healthier alternative. I see how hard you worked. Let's look at what you need next to get even better. This shifts the focus from comparison to progress, from competition to personal growth. Because a child doesn't need to become someone else. They need support to become the best version of themselves. And when comparison becomes a child's default lens on themselves, the next phrase does even greater harm. It convinces them that progress is out of reach, no matter how hard they try. Let's talk about that one. You'll never learn. Fixed mindset damage. The phrase that turns mistakes into proof of failure instead of proof of progress. Picture this. A child is struggling with math, or tying their shoes, or reading a tricky sentence. And after the third, fourth, fifth attempt, we snap. You'll never get this right. You'll never learn. But here's the part we often forget. A child's brain is literally built on repetition, mistakes, and neural rewiring. Failure isn't a sign they can't learn. Failure is the learning. And yet, when a parent says, "You'll never learn," the child hears something far more permanent. "I'm not smart enough. I'm slow. I can't improve. This is who I am." This is the birthplace of a fixed mindset. The belief that intelligence is static, ability is fixed, and effort won't matter. Dr. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset is crystal clear. Children who believe their abilities can grow, do. Children who believe abilities are fixed stop trying. And here's what often happens years later. Adults who grew up hearing, "You'll never learn," tend to give up quickly, avoid challenges, feel ashamed of mistakes, and see setbacks as proof that they're not good enough. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they learn to fear the process of learning itself. A healthier alternative. Math can be tricky. Mistakes are proof you're learning. Let's try again together. This simple shift does something powerful. It reframes struggle as progress, effort as growth, and mistakes as evidence that learning is happening. Because children don't need to be told where they fall short. They need to be shown how to rise. And if telling a child they'll never learn makes them doubt their ability, the final phrase is even more devastating. Because it makes them doubt their entire future. It doesn't just shut down effort or emotion. It shuts down possibility. This is the phrase that stays in a child's mind long after the moment has passed. Let's look at it. You'll never make it. The phrase that crushes ambition before it has a chance to grow. A teenager says they want to be an artist, a singer, a dancer, a scientist, a creator, a dreamer. And instead of support, they hear, "You'll never make it in that." This is not a prediction. It's a limitation. And here's the painful truth. Children believe the voice of their parents long before they believe in the voice inside themselves. So when a child hears, "You'll never make it," their brain forms a story. "I shouldn't aim that high. I'll fail anyway. I'm not talented enough. My dreams are unrealistic. Why even try?" But neuroscientists and developmental psychologists agree. Children don't dream big because they think they can succeed. They dream big because they believe someone will stand beside them as they try. When a parent dismisses a dream, they're not protecting a child from disappointment. They're planting disappointment in advance. Research on self-efficacy, Albert Bandura, shows that children who believe they can are far more likely to persist longer, take healthy risks, recover from setbacks, and exceed expectations. But belief doesn't come from talent. It comes from support. And children raised with phrases like, "You'll never make it," often grow into adults who play small to stay safe, abandon ideas before starting, feel undeserving of success, live their lives asking for permission instead of opportunities. Not because they lacked ability, but because someone shattered the bridge between them and possibility. A healthier alternative. That's a big dream, and if it matters to you, let's explore what steps it would take to get there. This does not promise success. It promises support. And support is the soil where ambition takes root. Our words don't disappear. They become the voice our children will hear. In moments of fear. In moments of doubt. In moments when they wonder who they are. And what they're capable of. We don't have to be perfect. But we do have to be intentional. Because every sentence we speak either builds a child's inner world or cracks it. So let's replace the words that wound with the words that build. We can't go back and change what we've said in the past. But we can begin today to create a new inner voice for our child. A voice of trust, a voice of resilience, a voice that says, "You are worthy, you are enough, and you can become anything you choose to be." That is the greatest gift a parent can ever give. Not money, not achievements, but the inner voice, the belief that allows their child to shine. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you're here, it already means something beautiful. You're a parent who truly wants to understand your child, not just manage them. Our words shape their inner world, but the journey doesn't end here. In the next video, we'll dive into Shitsuke, the 4 pillars Japanese parents use to teach kids self-discipline, not blind obedience. I'll see you there.